I'm going to call this meeting to order. If you would, follow along with the Pledge of Allegiance, invocation from Alderman Lucas.
Father God, as we come before your throne, it's with great praise and thanksgiving for this opportunity that you're giving us to come together and do the business of the city. We pray your blessing over each household that's represented here. We pray your blessing over our city, over our aldermen, our administration, all of our staff. Lord, just continue to honor our work and let it be a blessing to each and every one of our community. Thank you, Father God, for letting your Spirit hover over us tonight, leading us and guiding us in all that we should do and say and think. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Artie. Madam Clerk, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Lucas? Denham?
Here.
Cooper?
Here.
Milton?
Yep.
Howden? LeBlanc?
Here.
Schultz?
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight, we're going to start off with awards and recognitions. Director Amanda Smith will be presenting Nikki Ashmore as the Employee of the Month for March 2025.
I didn't get married, but
Is Nikki here?
yes.
Oh,
Nikki, can you come up and join me?
there she is.
All right. I'm pleased to recognize Nikki Ashmore as our Employee of the Month. Nikki has demonstrated dedication and hard work going beyond the expectations of her role as a planner. She has taken on significant responsibility in helping assess and improve our permitting processes, responding directly to feedback from the development community. Nikki has been deeply involved in identifying challenges within our current system and is actively working to find solutions that will enhance how we serve both the public and our internal teams. While this process is continuing, we are incredibly thankful that Nikki is willing to take on such a major undertaking with determination and focus. Her efforts are helping lay the foundation for a more efficient and effective process moving forward. Nikki's commitment to problem solving and her willingness to take on additional responsibilities have made a real impact on our department. Thank you, Nikki, for your hard work and determination. You are appreciated.
Love that. Yeah.
Now we have Chief Schmidt. He'll be presenting Matt Lynch as our a Special Accommodation Employee of the month of March 2025.
So Mayor and Board, is great pleasure that I get to recognize Matt Lynch for some outstanding service, believe it or not, that didn't even occur in the city of Branson. On one of his shifts, he overheard a call in Taney County of a gentleman that was suicidal and was in crisis, and it was looking like it was proceeding towards a suicide by cop type scenario. Matt took it upon himself, because he knew this gentleman from his younger days, to call this gentleman, establish contact with him, and talk him into putting his weapon down and coming out to surrender so that he could get the mental help that he needed. Even more so, the county asked that Matt respond out there and be there to assist when the gentleman came out. And so we obviously put him in for this award for his caring not even for just people of Branson, but for the community. His heart for being willing to reach out and help protect somebody that was in a vulnerable state, and it could have ended much worse. We're very, very proud of Matt, those of you that know him from his days in the parks. And he has come a long way with us in the police department, and we are just so proud of him. And with that, we are presenting him with this special commendation.
Thank you, Matt.
Oh, okay, because I'm like, that's a weird angle. One more set of pictures here. Yeah. Crying out loud. Eric.
That's funny. The next, I have a proclamation. I am proclaiming March as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, colorectal, in Branson, Missouri. Christina, would you come up front, please? I've got a few things to say. This is a proclamation from the office of the mayor. Whereas a colorectal
Yep, you got it.
cancer is the second leading cause of cancer deaths in the United States among men and women combined, and the leading cause of cancer death for men and the second leading cause for women under the age of 50. Whereas colorectal cancer is one of the few cancers that can be prevented with timely screening. Yet 1 in 3 eligible Americans are not up to date in certain populations, including American Indian, Alaska Native, Black and Hispanic Americans, as well as those in the rural communities, face higher incidence rates and mortalities from this disease. And whereas in 2004, an estimated 1,500 and 2,810 new cases and 53,010 deaths were attributed to colorectal cancer, underscoring the urgent need to increase screening rates and advance health equity to reduce the burden of this disease. And whereas the National Colorectal Cancer Roundtable has set a national goal to increase colorectal cancer screening rates to 80% in every community, and recognize March as Colorectal
You could say it.
Cancer Awareness Month to provide an opportunity to educate the public on the importance of early detection and prevention. Now therefore, I, Larry Milton, the mayor of City of Branson, Missouri, do hereby proclaim March 2024 as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. You want to say a few words?
I'm honored but yet humbled to stand here today. My late husband was diagnosed with colorectal cancer when he was 36 and we were 7 months pregnant with our firstborn son. He fought 16 months and he passed away of this deadly disease. So I encourage anybody, if you're 45 years old or older and you've not had a colonoscopy, do so. Little babies do not deserve to be growing up with their daddies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, as Christina leaves, I just wanted to say, we talk about leadership in communities, and she's over in Hollister as an administrator in the Hollister School District over there. And her husband was a friend of mine. And that's how we met. And she has been a champion for this cause like no other. And she has gone to D.C. many, many years in a row. She just told me earlier that she chose not to go this year just because of the demands on her time. But I gotta say, I just want to tell you, I'm so proud and happy for you, and for you and for Porter. So thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Ralph. Madam Clerk, do you have any speakers this evening?
Yes, sir. We have 2 speakers.
Okay, then please note there will be a 5-minute limit on the items listed on the agenda. This is the public comments section of the Board of Aldermen meeting. At this time, the board will hear the citizens who have signed up in the order they are listed. Please note the clerk will let speakers know when they have 30 seconds left, and a notification will sound when their time is up. We ask that speakers wrap up their comments upon hearing the 30-second warning. If a speaker would like a board member to bring down an item from the consent agenda for additional discussion, please note this request during comments. Please come to the freestanding microphone to address the board. Madam Clerk?
Our first speaker is Richie Zates, speaking on future.
I am absolutely overwhelmed by your presentation here and the work that's being done for the city. Not only expansion in the realm of profits and prosperity, but we have to keep the heart of the city vibrant, that God wants us to do that. And my concern has always been life and the future. We know that in the past we've had 10 to 14-year-olds that are taking their own lives because of some of the things that society has been placing upon them. I would like to expand the parameters, work with Artie, and maybe have us review, I don't want to say maybe, review the possibilities of expanding the parameters to safeguard the community against experimental drugs, Pfizer, or any other animal things that might be projected in this direction. And I'd like to have no limitations on it. I was in Florida with DeSantis when he was passing a bill because they wanted to have compulsory vaccinations at that time. And we protested and we won. But it had a limitation, as Artie was showing. Unlimited. We do not want intrusion. We do not want anything forced on the community. We don't want anyone, we've had an increase in deaths after the COVID, and I know that's an issue that people say that they don't want to talk about, but we lost a lot of children that were given the vaccine in the pregnancy care centers, that the numbers expanded. As long as I'm breathing on this earth, I will continue to strive for the lives of the people in this country. God bless y'all.
Thank you, Richie. Madam Clerk?
Our final speaker is Joe Reich.
Hold on a sec, Hillary.
Sorry.
I just wanted to say that I support what Richie is talking about very much, and I've raised it several times about hoping the city could do something. And many of you know the position that the governor of Florida made this last week on precluding any requirements on vaccines for children. And I would like to see if it might be possible for the city to send a letter signed by the mayor to the governor requesting him to do the same thing in Missouri that DeSantis did as governor in Florida.
Thank you, Artie. Madam Clerk?
Our next speaker is Joe Reich, speaking on SID continued.
Is this one live or? Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm here to speak against redoing the community improvement district that runs Sparky and Smoky. I'm sorry. I feel like for the money collected, we have not got much bang for our buck. And it's a real impediment to anyone that collects sales tax and is in a competitive industry as I was. Having said that, no one here put the thing in. And it has been run as well as I think it could be given what it is. But let's rethink it before we reapprove it.
Thank you, Joe.
Joe, could you do that feet come two to a pair thing?
I bought a lot of shoes from that guy.
Yeah. Next is the consent agenda. Are there any items that any member of the board would like to have moved down from the consent agenda for additional questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I request that Bill 6525 as well as Bill 6527 be pulled down. I'd ask that you consider placing those after item number 8, since I think we have a lot of people here for item number 8.
So you're asking to pull 6525 and 6527 and have them on the agenda after item number 8. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Hillary, will you accommodate that, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other board member? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please read the items on the consent agenda?
Your Honor, the items on the consent agenda are as follows. Approval of Board of Aldermen minutes for the February 25th, 2025 special meeting and February 25th, 2025 regular meeting. Acknowledge receipt of monthly contract report from February 3rd, 2025 to March 2nd, 2025. Final reading of bill number 6523, an ordinance amending the Branson Municipal Code for exceptions to the alarm systems and sprinkler system requirements in Chapter 42, Fire Prevention and Protection regarding Section 42-55, subject sections 903 and 907 pertaining to the International Fire Code. Final reading of bill number 6524, an ordinance amending chapter 94, table 94-64-1, temporary uses in section 94-64D3 of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to farmers markets. And final reading of bill number 6526, an ordinance amending throughout chapter 18, buildings and building regulations, and chapter 42, fire prevention and protection of the Branson Municipal Code to clarify and create a consistent process for the Board of Appeals. Your Honor, that concludes the reading of the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you. Do I have a motion approving all items on the consent agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you take a roll call vote, please?
Lucas? Denham?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Howden?
Yes.
LeBlanc?
Yes.
Schultz?
Yes.
The result of the vote is 6-0. Motion carries. Your Honor, the next item is the public hearing and first reading of bill number 6528, an ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of Branson, Missouri, approving the extension of the term of the historic downtown Branson Community Improvement District.
We will now open up the public hearing and begin with a staff report from Kyle.
Let me grab one of them. Mayor, Alderman, thank you. So as you know, 20 years ago, the trolley was put into place on April 19th of 2006. And since then, the function of the district has established, operated, and expanded otherwise and improved the free downtown trolley service. Whereas in subsection 6, that the term of the district, a municipality may adopt an ordinance to extend the term of the existence of a district after holding public hearing on the proposed extension. Whereas the district has submitted District Resolution 2024-06 to the Board of Aldermen requesting extension of the term of the district for another 20 years so that the district will not be prohibited from continuing to provide its service. Whereas the city of Branson mailed notices at least 15 days in advance that it would hold a public hearing on March 11th at 6 p.m. for the purpose of the discussion of the district's proposal. Whereas the Board of Aldermen has held the public hearing to provide the discussion of the district's proposal for extension of the term, and whereas the board desires the district to continue to provide its service and otherwise support the historic downtown Branson area. We are asking for a renewal of the term to be extended 20 years. We do have our attorney, Greg Dorman, on the line if there were any legal questions that are outside of my purview. I did appear before you a couple of weeks ago and talked about some of the highlights. I'll re-highlight some of the things that we have done besides operate the free trolley. I don't want there to be any confusion that all we've done is operate a trolley. We've also provided over 1 million passengers with free transportation. We renovated the Aubrey bathroom inside and out, much nicer in there, replaced the landscaping in the historic downtown, provided the annual maintenance for that landscaping. We purchased and insured the incredible custom Christmas light snowflakes that we actually added on to into each year. Even prior to the custom snowflakes, the CID paid for most of the Christmas lights and decor downtown. We provided the smaller lighted Christmas tree in Liberty Plaza. We paid for the trolley shelter across the convention center, and we paid for the custom sign light on trolley shelter in Liberty Plaza. And we also do a lot of cross-referencing on Facebook promoting the trolley in the city of Branson. That's the end of what I've got to say.
Okay. The end.
Yes.
So Greg, I want to tell you, the city is very appreciative for what this downtown Sid did, for the lights they've put down there, the landscaping, contributing to the restroom facilities, and all the extra thing. And I understand you're helping with the city for the downtown signage, I believe.
And we just passed downtown light help for the renovation that's going down the street.
That's right.
There, we just approved a large amount to help with the lighting, and it's really going to make that area pop. If you haven't seen the renderings, I hope you have.
What's your definition of large? A couple million? Just kidding. Any board member have any questions for Kyle? I'm sorry, yeah, for Kyle.
I'm Kyle, yeah.
Yeah. Hearing none, any questions or comments from anybody in the audience?
No.
Would you,
I mean, yes, sir, Mr. Klein.
do you have a question? Yeah, I do. Would you come up to the microphone, please, so everybody can hear? Thank you.
You have the mic, Kyle.
I do.
Yeah. So other than all those benefits, is there a reason it should be a SID?
That is not a question for me. Chris, can you answer that question?
I'm sorry, can we get, just for the record, can we get your name, please, just for the record?
Yeah, Ken Klein.
Ken Klein?
And I just bought a building downtown, so that's why I'm asking.
And just to be sure, the question was, is there a reason it has to be a SID? Is that what your question was? Is there a reason there has to be a SID? I don't know that answer. That's. The
operation is great.
I'm sorry, Ken, if you're going to speak, we have people listening.
Yeah, please, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, so the operation is great, and the benefits are great. And my building is within the district. But I'm not sure I think it should be a SID. I guess that's my, it seems like that could be sunsetted, and the benefits can roll.
I'm going to ask Chris Bohink to help with that answer. She's been involved since the very beginning.
Well, since we do have our attorney on, if I state any of this wrong, please correct me, but that's a great question, and I literally, just my own research I've done, I go back to a piece that Joe Lauber wrote, and he wrote our original SID and most of the reasons for it. And if I remember it correctly, it's been a while since I've read it, but SIDs exist to provide services that the city otherwise would not provide. And so that district itself are the ones that it's their money, and so it's only money to improve them, not for other services outside of it. And when we ended up with excess money, that's why we were able to partner with the city on lots of different things that help make our downtown improved. And so, but if it sunsetted, I don't know if those services would continue. So that's my best answer. I hope that helps, Mr. Klein. And our attorney, Greg, I assume, is on, because I know that Chad put him on, if he has a better answer, because that's just the best I can do.
There he is.
You're on the screen now, Greg, and you could speak.
Yes.
We've never met.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
So
Oh, hey.
I appreciate the chance to talk. And yes, I certainly agree with what Chris said, and it's completely correct. And I just think I would add, there are multiple ways of establishing new services that political subdivisions have to choose from. 20 years ago, obviously, the decision was made to create this community improvement district, and that has succeeded, and it was used to form this trolley service. It's funded by the sales tax. It's only within the district, and really you get a lot of control over the type of service that is through decisions that are made, from input directly from those property owners and residents within that district. So that's been the model. Yes, it could be a city-operated service or some other political subdivision, but it's certainly worked to date as a community improvement district.
Greg, who votes on this? Does it go to the public for a vote?
Well, the extension of it was set up to have a life of 20 years. And so that is what is before the Board of Aldermen tonight in the request of the district to allow it to continue to exist for another 20 years. The funding is a separate question. There is a SID sales tax that without which the trolley service wouldn't be possible after April of 2026. So if the Board of Aldermen approves the SID continuing to exist after April of 2026, then the next step will be to go to the qualified voters of the district to ask to extend the sales tax, because that is also set to expire in 2026. And the qualified voters of the district are the registered voters who reside within it.
Alderman Lucas?
Yes, thank you. Chris, do you have any idea what the number of those qualified electors are?
When this was checked approximately a year ago, there were 32 registered voters in the district. Now, since the Roark Creek properties have all those condos, and I know we have a lot more parcels in the district, so I don't know without it going to the city clerk to find out what the number is to date that we would, contact if this passed through the Board of Aldermen.
Artie?
Okay, yeah, that's a small amount. But the other question that I had was, is there a purpose for it being 20 years and not a shorter length of time?
Do you want me to answer, or Greg?
That was I had the same question. It just, why 20? Why are we locking in for 20?
Greg, I think that's a question for you.
Yeah, it could be a longer period or a shorter period. Under the SID statute says they now exist. The initial period of a district is set to be a maximum of 27 years. So when the district was created, 20 was chosen instead of 27. For renewal, that cap isn't specified, but the district is asked to have it extended for the same 20-year period that the city was comfortable with initially.
You good? Any other?
Sure wish there were a lot more business owners here tonight from there. I'd like to hear from.
Is there other individuals in the audience that'd like to address this? Come on up. Come on down.
My name's Tammy Thurman.
I'm sorry, you've got to go to that one apparently.
Tammy Thurman. I've got a building on Pacific Street across from Liberty Plaza. I can only speak for the things that the city has done. The landscaping and the lighting are absolutely beautiful and enhances downtown, and I would love to see it continue. I see people on the trolley all the time. I think it's a great thing for downtown Branson, and I would hate to see it go away.
Tammy, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
that. Thank you.
I might add to that is that, all of us who serve on the board are also business owners in the district, so we certainly support it. We've got Chris Knipple with the pawn shop, Mary Bowman with Engler Block, Jerry Jeske. He's a stand-in for somebody. And then Tom Motley, attorney Tom Motley, and then I'm Kyle Yunk, and I have the Huff House and a couple other properties in the city of Branson. So we all support it also.
Good to know. Any other comments? Marshall.
Kyle, is there an official relationship between the CID and the DBBA?
Greg, can you answer that? I'm not sure I know the answer to that directly.
Yes, I don't know the whole history by any means. I've only been representing the district for the past several months. But I know that there have been multiple contracts in past years related to the services of the district and the DBBA coordinating with the district. Currently, I think there is a contract in place that they're still continuing to provide some services, and I think Chris Bohink might be or Kyle might be the best.
Chris, yeah, please.
Persons to talk to about the current status of those.
All right,
But
I'll
it's a
ask.
contracted relationship.
Yes, sir. I'll ask Chris to come up and explain a little further, too. Don't leave.
So the answer to that is there's a public service agreement that they provide services and they're contracted with the CID. That agreement was extended 3 months this year and ends at the end of this month. So that's up for consideration for renewal. I will say in the past number of years, that amount has been decreased every year. And does that answer that okay, Alderman Mark?
It just seems to me that if the CID were to go away, the DBBA would probably be the only organization that sort of represented downtown in the interests of downtown. So that might go into our consideration when we're thinking about this.
That's probably true, right? Chris, don't you agree?
Well, I don't
There's
want
no
to
other
speak for
organizations.
anything with them, but we represent them heavily because we do a ton of marketing too, $80,000 a year minimum in marketing as well.
Would that be concerning to you, Marshall? Yeah. I figured that's, yeah.
And I can't speak for my board how they'll vote on things, just like your directors can't speak for you. But that's just the current status, so I gave you the exact. And also, our meetings have always been the first Tuesday consistently. We meet in the Branson Centennial Museum every first Tuesday at 4:15, and anybody's welcome. Alderman Schultz comes to our meetings, which we greatly appreciate, and anybody's welcome so that they can provide input on any of the items.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Ruth.
The 27 years maximum, is there a minimum listed?
That would be Greg, Attorney Dorman.
No, there's not a minimum listed. Typically you see them established over longer periods of time. Sometimes community improvement districts are little more than funding mechanisms for issuances of bonds for particular public improvement projects or sewers or something like that. And in that case, the life of them is aimed at how long it's anticipated to take to repay the debt. This one is obviously much more than that because they operate these services and engage in these promotional activities every day. So typically you see those either set up in the beginning for a full 27 years or something pretty close to that.
And I will tell you one benefit, I think, of having...
Into the mic, please. Thank you.
One benefit of having the longer term is these trolleys are $500,000 a piece and up. It takes a while to collect that much money. And so the longer term does allow us to operate debt-free. It does allow us to make good choices because we know that we've got, if we make a decision in year 7, we don't have to worry about what's that decision going to be like in 3 years. Or if we make a decision in year 3, what happens in year 5? Because these trolleys, they take a year to order. And then our last one was over $500,000. The next one won't be cheaper. So it does take time to collect enough money to be able to do this. And it does take a process from when we first start looking at a trolley. It takes us months to get bids back from trolley manufacturers, and then it takes months for them to get started, and then they have to part out things. I think we were well over a year on our last trolley, if I remember right. Oh. And I'm sorry, it was 200,000 for our last one, 185. I misspoke because I was thinking about our budgeting for more trolleys coming up. But, so about 200,000, but still, the point's still there. It takes time to collect that much money. And then when we do make the decision to do like the bathrooms or to do the lighting, the Christmas lights, I mean, that's a year of planning. The bathrooms took a year of planning. So it does take longer increments to do that.
Artie.
Since you bring it up, what is the revenue that's generated from this every year?
I don't have that in front of me. Chris, do you have that answer?
Yeah, it was just provided to you.
Yep.
But I brought it just in case you asked, because of course it's always provided to the city for their but it was about 700,000-800,000, but I wrote down what the
I'm sorry,
budget
Chris.
was. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So the projected summary of receipts is about 700,000. And you'll get a complete new report in a month as well, because we give you full reports when we give them to the state, and you got the budget just a few months ago. And so all those reports go through, I think, your clerk's office and your finance department, and then they're on your board meetings. But you're welcome to if you need a copy of a report, let me know.
How large a reserve do you have?
Our reserve, after what we're planning, is, I don't have on my reading glasses.
368.
368,000 is the reserve after what we're planning on spending, because the one large one that they just approved to help with the streetscape have that extra wow that wasn't in the budget was 200,000. So that was just dedicated to the streetscape.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, to speak to the spirit of the SID and the longevity of time kind of thing, you have to kind of think, everyone that's on this board are operators in their own business. And, while these are, big decisions they make on a monthly basis where those funds are spent and how they're allocated, it's to their time, like the amount of time that it takes to plan those things as Kyle spoke. So it's not even so much the financial obligation as much as it is the human investment that they have in it. And, to just end one and to try to figure out like how are we going to resource that, then again requires more humans, more time where, the extension of 20 years seems like, a fair ask since it was a 20-year to begin with, because it just frees up so much human capital and moving forward so they continue to do the things. And I applaud you guys for the collaboration with the city and the downtown streetscape, because those are the things that make it possible, that longevity and building that revenue and building those reserves, and not knowing that there's even an opportunity to do that when it's not on your radar, and then suddenly it is, and the pride that you guys get to be able to play a part of it, I think it's just a win-win for everybody. I think it's a great, opportunity, so.
Greg, I have a question. The downtown SID is a separate taxing district, separate from the city. So I know this board is being asked to vote. Would you explain to this board what our role, responsibility is for this board to vote yes or no? What responsibility do we have on a separate taxing district?
Well, when it comes to community improvement districts, they don't exist without the approval of the city. Your predecessors, I assume for all of you, or at least almost all of you, were not on the board 20 years ago, and they approved the district then. And so then once it's approved, it then has life as a separate political subdivision. But there are limits on that, and one of those is that this was approved for a 20-year period, so it will not continue to exist unless the board approves extending its term. As to the taxes, or the sales tax revenue, that is one way that a community improvement district can generate revenue. There are other ways. This is the method that has worked for 20 years and provided the funds necessary to provide the trolley service and promotional activities and everything else that has been discussed. But that will be a question that has to be put to the voters, whether to extend that sales tax. The community improvement districts board will have to decide, do they seek the same sales tax amount, duration, et cetera, just like anyone who is going to voters seeking approval of a tax has to do. And they have to make their case to those voters to justify asking for that tax.
Okay, so this board is not voting to approve and extend the CID tax for 20 years. We're voting to approve to move it and take it to the ballot for the voters to vote on it. Is that correct?
Practically, yes, that is what will happen. Technically, this ordinance doesn't send anything to the ballot. The Community Improvement District Board is who will vote on a resolution and then work with the election authority to do a mail-in election, which is how it works.
So they need
the
this
SID
board
Act.
to approve, to extend, to get it to that next step.
Yes, because the district would not seek to extend the sales tax if the district isn't going to be in existence.
And if the
They are
board,
related issues, but they're two separate.
yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. So if the board voted no, would it still go to the voters to approve?
So the decision would be really up to the Community Improvement District Board whether they would seek to extend the sales tax, but I think that would be obviously a lot less likely if the district's existence was not going to be allowed to continue.
Okay. Kathy, do you have something? Come on up, Steve. State your name, address, shoe size for the record.
Steve Hartley, Dix 5 and 10, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. 20 years ago, the Community Improvement District was formed for transportation throughout the district. We felt it to be very important as the landing was coming on to be able to bring people up and take people down. And while it still does that, and the district has grown greatly, it still does that and does that very well, it's grown to be so much more than that. The things they've done the past few years continue to help build us as our own identity and an experience within the entire Branson experience. And they're forward thinkers. They they want to make historic downtown Branson the best it can be. So speaking for Dix 5 and 10, we absolutely support it being extended, taken to the voters.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Kathy, do you have something you'd like to share?
Yeah, just one thing. One of the gentlemen earlier came up and said, why do a SID? I think it was, yeah, thank you. So from the city's perspective and how much competition there is every year to get, you know, people's ideas funded around the city, whether it's landscaping efforts or road improvement efforts, transportation efforts as far as the trolleys or public transportation goes, the benefit that you all have being in a SID is you're raising your own pot of money, and you've got that oversight to make decisions on how you spend that, and nobody else can come in and claim that money and take it for their project across town. And so it gives you a unique benefit to be able to be kind of the masters of your own destiny, if you will, on what your downtown looks like. And we would never have the money in the city budget to be able to fund the trolleys and that network of operation. We're so thankful, and I just want to take a moment to thank Chris and the board, because they came to us and said, there's some things we would love to see, and we know you guys didn't budget for these things, but things like the bathroom improvements, I mean, night and day difference. Any of you that have used those restroom facilities, you know what I'm talking about. Amen. So, I mean, those were things that have been going on for years and hadn't been able to get attention, and if it weren't for the board and Chris's leadership, frankly, to come to us and offer to be a partner in our success, and then upping the landscaping game. I mean, what a difference. So the lighting contribution, I'm kind of gushing right now, but I haven't had the chance to do that yet, Chris, so I'm sorry. But my thanks to you all, because this downtown improvement stuff that we're working on now isn't just critical for the infrastructure improvements and the investments that you've all made in your buildings downtown and making sure those can continue to function, but to flourish is what we're shooting for next. And with the help and support from your SID, we're going to be able to do that and beyond. So I'm so appreciative. So thank you.
Man. Wow. Kathy, you should have opened this agenda with that. We'd be done right now.
Should have started with that.
Yeah.
Does the board have any other questions? Chris, did you have, yes.
I just, so Alderman Lucas, I was going to say a first name, but I should be formal here, I apologize. I just wanted to let you know, I understand when you talk about 32 voters, how the district was formed and how they used to be formed. There was a state statute changed, but they were formed by 51% capita and 51% assessed value of all the property owners in the district that self-imposed this. They all, signed and notarized petitions to do this district, as they did with the Highway 76.
Yes.
And then when you do an annexation, we went through one downtown. I personally went to everybody we annexed, talked to them, and so the property owners self-imposed this. It is a change, though, in the state statute that it's done differently now. I mean, it still went to the voters after that, but the property owners were involved, and this public meeting was for the property owners. 380 parcels were notified of this meeting. Just want you to be aware, and that's why we provided the additional information to be on the city's website for them to look at. And we just, as I say, always welcome them to come and have input, because I love the board I serve, because all they care about is what can we do to help downtown. And when we get to partner with the city and pool our resources to even do more, it's pretty exciting, and
Yeah.
I appreciate you all so much.
Chris, so there's 380 businesses
No,
in
parcels.
parcels, not businesses.
The businesses don't vote in it. The businesses can come and have a say. Now, my board is comprised of business and building owners. They have both. To be on the board, they either have to own a building or they have to be, supported by somebody who owns a building in the district that wants them to be their representative.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? If not, I will be closing the public. Any last comments before we close the public hearing? Hearing none. This public hearing is now closed. Thank you, Kyle. You've heard the first reading of Bill number 6528. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any members of the board wishing to speak to this matter?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
We've heard a lot about what the board has accomplished, and I think it's a great list of things. I mean, they really look after our downtown community, but I just want to add, having spent the last many months attending their board meetings, being a guest at their board meetings, I just want to speak to the governance of this board. I think they do an outstanding job in terms of public notification of their meetings. They leave time at the beginning of their meetings for the public to speak, which is usually where I get to speak if I have something to say. And they're always looking after the interests of downtown and everything they do. I think they have an extraordinarily dedicated board, and I think we should be extraordinarily proud of them that they handle the tax money that they raise with such good stewardship and with such good intents.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other board member? Anybody from the audience wishing to comment? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it.
So the result of the vote is,
Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm going to sneak out.
Thanks, Chris. I feel used, Chris.
yes.
That's right.
So we are going to go back to the ones pulled from the consent.
Yes.
At this time. So the first one is, Your Honor, this is the final reading of Bill number 6525, an ordinance amending section 94-88C of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to lighting for parking lots.
Do we need to pull that up here on the screen so we can see it?
We can.
It wasn't
So-
in our packet, yeah.
So, and then just to get it on the floor for additional discussion would be the next steps.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. We'll get a staff report from Holly.
I'm going to defer to Alderman Schultz. He is the one who asked to have it brought down.
Okay, fair enough.
We've already presented regarding our recommendations
I stand
in
corrected.
this.
Yeah, thank you, Attorney Dodge. I appreciate that. I'll make this brief, and I realize I'm probably alone in this perspective, so I'll keep it brief. But as I said in the last meeting, I think we do a disservice to our community, to our builders, to our developers when we have vague ordinances that require interpretation that could become argumentative rather than measurable. As I said before, I look at this, we have thousands and thousands of pages of building codes that we require developers to comply with. And after going through all that burdensome exact, I can reference everything I need to know, I can figure out what I've got to do. Then at the end, we come with an ordinance that says, but when you do your parking lot, you got to kind of just minimize and you got to kind of prevent. And, that's really contrary to the way we write other ordinances. I'd equate it to saying, well, have an appropriate setback on your construction from your property line, or please drive with a reasonable speed limit, those types of things. And so I think we're technically capable as a city to be better than this. I think we could write an ordinance that would provide much more specific guidance to our developers in something that doesn't become a judgmental or even a litigious issue at the end of some project. So my position, as it was on the last time we discussed this bill, is that I'd vote to not pass this ordinance change.
Glenn, I lean more towards if the language is created and accepted by our legal team, I trust them because they will be the ones defending it. And at the last meeting, I believe there were 5 aldermen that approved this. So as long as Holly feels comfortable with the language, do you, Holly?
Yes, and part of this, and we've had quite a few conversations regarding this, and I think it was part of our public hearing, this is the balance. And rather than having a very arduous and robust parking lot lighting ordinance, this is a minimal good neighbor portion of consideration for parking lots.
Fair enough. Any other Alderman?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh,
Just in response to the comment, first, I have the utmost respect for our legal team. I think they do a fantastic job for the city. But on the other hand, if we were to say whatever our legal team writes, we should just approve, then we really don't need the Board of Aldermen. So there is a balance here, and that's all the reason I'm expressing my opinion, because I can see that we have many technical standards, thousands of pages of very technical standards, and here we have one that's very generic. So while I appreciate the position of our staff, it does not represent my position.
before we vote, is there any other Alderman that has any input on this? Yes, Artie.
I think an issue in our ward may have been the last one that we dealt with on this. I'm not sure, but it was an issue where the apartments across the street or the condos across the street from Social Birdie were complaining about the lights shining into their rooms. And I had commented to the police chief about the glare in your eyes driving down Branson Hills Parkway.
Yes.
So I can appreciate what Glenn is saying, because they could have said, well, we are trying to minimize it, but, you know, we turned it down a little bit, but they ended up having to go clear down because they were LED lights, super bright. And even now, they reflect into those apartments. And so they have tried to minimize it. And they have tried to prevent the glare driving down Branson Hills Parkway. But with the ordinance as it reads, I could see where it could be an issue.
Thank you, Artie. Any other Alderman have input? Kathy? She almost did. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak to this? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor,
Let's
say...
do a roll call just because it's on final reading.
Oh, I'm sorry, second read. Roll call, please.
Lucas? Denham?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Howden?
Yes.
LeBlanc?
Yes.
Schultz?
No.
So the result of the vote is 4-2. The noes being Alderman Lucas and Alderman Schultz, and the motion carries. So now we're going to move on to the second item pulled from the consent, and that is, Your Honor, this is the final reading of Bill Number 6527, an ordinance amending throughout Chapter 18 Buildings and Building Regulations of the Branson Municipal Code to clarify and create a consistent process for applications and permits.
Chad, can we pull that up also, please? Okay, Glenn?
I move to approve the bill.
Second.
This was just a rehearsal. We have a motion and a second to approve the second read. Any comments from the board?
Mr. Mayor?
Glenn? Surprise.
So we talked about this a little bit last time. The change, and just to review, because it is kind of a interesting, complex change to the ordinance. So the first paragraph up there under permit applications says that the permit that will initially be granted will be 1 year. So we have the case where somebody comes, they submit all their drawings, their spec book, their MEP, and the staff looks it over and they say everything looks reasonable, here's your building permit. under this ordinance, that building permit will be granted for 1 year. Then paragraph 2 kicks in. And this is the issue that says, essentially, if nothing happens within 180 days, and the wording here is particular, and I'll get to that in a second, but if nothing happens in 180 days, and it is actually a rolling 180 days the way it's described, throughout that 1 year period, then the city can cancel the permit. Now, a couple of comments from my perspective on that. One is the permit, the person that applied for the permit, even for a reasonable home in Branson, has spent $3,000 or more potentially to acquire that permit. And so we've got a condition here where we're canceling permits and we're not offering refunds, obviously, we're just canceling them. So to that person, that money is lost. The part that I brought up last time, and I've spent a great deal of time talking with city staff, our attorneys, Alex Gerard, our chief of staff, and we had a pretty robust conversation on this whole thing in terms of what is our intent with the phrase continuous and substantial progress. And it was a great discussion, and we talked through all the issues that might arise. And I think it's fair to say that staff felt, and I'll leave this for others to comment on, but I think it was fair to say that staff felt that with substantial progress being defined as passing one or more inspections, that essentially met the need of staff to ensure that there was progress on the construction project, so that the term continuous, since that wasn't defined in the ordinance, given that we should, and I would recommend, and I'll actually make this a motion, that we should, as shown in red, should strike out the words continuous and. So I make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
So we have an emotion and a second. And now we're on board discussion. I believe Solon provided this board with input on this issue. Is that correct, Solon?
Yeah, and the council would still be the same, but I will say that I have a couple of additional comments to make about it. The initial reason why we did not want to remove continuous is because we wanted to be able to ensure continuous construction was going. We don't want a contractor to build something and then partially and then just leave it. And so there are some other sections of this proposed code that kind of accomplish that, in that, as you can see, they do have to make some progress every 180 days because they have to pass an inspection in order to keep going. So to that extent, or to the extent that pushes continuous development along, that could be achieve the objective of moving developments forward. So I think it's up to the board whether or not they want to, and I will say the word continuous does give the city a little more teeth to enforce. We don't have to wait for the 180 days. If we know they're going to be sitting on it, then we can move on it. But to Glenn's point, it may deter developers if they feel like it's an uncertain term. So I can appreciate that. I think it's a policy decision that the board needs to make, and I think that both would move developments forward. It's just something you have to decide is, do we want to give the city a little more teeth to make sure that happens, or are we good with the 180 days?
Okay, Solon, so you're comfortable with it either way. You're feeling this is a policy that this board should decide on?
Yes, yes, Mayor, and I just think that, I am comfortable with it either way.
Okay.
Continuous gives us a little more teeth. That's how I'll summarize it.
Great. Any other comments from the board? Ralph?
Mr. Mayor, in the past, I think one of the things that our ordinances and our staff has lacked is teeth, When it came to, certain things as far as enforcement, we didn't have, there was an ordinance, but we didn't have the wherewithal or the documentation to be able to kind of enforce it. It's almost as though there's a perceived assumption that our city staff is going to do everything they can to tank this opportunity for people. That's kind of what I'm feeling. And, you know, I think it's a protective mechanism for our staff in the event of those unscrupulous developers or unscrupulous builders that really have little disregard for proper procedure. And I think this is just another protective mechanism that we have in place to be able to enforce these things in a very logical way. And to think that it's, you know, a way that, you know, we could take $3,000 from somebody, I think is just ridiculous to even think that. And I know, I mean, I've had meetings with our city staff, and there's definitely not that in them. I mean, if anything, it's we want progress, we want people to develop, and we want to make it as comfortable and as easy as we can. But to take our ability to enforce that, I think puts us at a distinct disadvantage moving forward.
I think I'd like to ask council, if we got into a hairy situation with a builder or developer, I mean, like it got, you know, legal and this and that, could that word being there or not being there be the difference, like a game changer? You know what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying?
Well, one is black and white. One is if you take the continuous out, you know, it's 180 days. That's when we get to decide whether or not they've made progress. If you leave continuous in, there's room both for saying that they haven't made continuous progress or saying that they have. I mean, if you have a good staff that is pro-development, they have the ability to justify continuous progress. For example, if you know, a developer comes and says, hey, it looks like nothing's happened on the dirt here, but let me show you what my staff has been working on behind the scenes. If you have a good staff, and I think this is something that Alderman Scholes has concerns about, is, you know, can you always guarantee a good staff? But if you have a good staff that are willing to, you know, be reasonable individuals and help developers with proper projects, I don't see a concern with it. It actually gives you flexibility. So it's, again, like I said, there's pros and cons to each approach. I'm fine with either one. It's kind of a policy decision that you guys need to make.
But I feel like last time we had a discussion, you were a little more hard-nosed on keeping it.
I was, and part of the reason behind that was it was sprung on me in the moment. I hadn't had a chance to kind of evaluate everything and look at it more in depth. And as I've had a chance to do that, I don't see as big of a detriment in removing the continuous, because that 180 days does push development forward. They can't, if they don't do anything in 180 days, they've got to have something there. So we still do have a little bit of teeth to push them forward from being just a stagnant project.
Fair enough. Ruth, Artie?
I feel like I'm comfortable with the continuous being included, because if it's removed, just says it's abandoned if substantial progress. And I think it's much more difficult to show, you know, what is substantial. That way, if you have continuous, I agree with Attorney Solon that it's easier, and that can even provide support for certain developers because they can work together. We don't know what hardships taken place, anything like that, so.
And just to be clear on that, so that you understand, substantial progress is defined there in the last sentence of section 2, and it says it's determined by one or more of the required inspections being passed. So you can't have an inspection be passed unless something's done, right? So again, you get some continuous movement forward as well if they've been required to pass an inspection of something.
Artie?
Thank you. I agree with what Ralph was saying. I think by retaining continuous in the ordinance, it does give us a little bit more teeth as far as pursuing if something is not done. If we have a developer or a builder that comes in, gets their permit, and then starts a project and then leaves town for 6 months, there hasn't been any continuous progress on the project. And so I think I would just leave it.
Okay. Glenn?
Yeah, a couple of things. When we kicked this around in staff, we tried to come up with a scenario where the substantial progress wasn't, that we couldn't achieve our objectives with the substantial progress definition. So in other words, as it's defined there, that they have to pass one or more required inspections. So the challenge was, what else would happen? What else would be in there that would require the word continuous? And we couldn't come up with a durable scenario. Everything ultimately came back to you could address it with having been required to pass at least one required inspection. And again, I have no qualms with our current staff in terms of handling this properly. But as I've talked about before from this dais, I think we always, as aldermen, are well served to look way beyond our current situation and say what happens in other circumstances, whether the board here changes, whether our staff changes, whether our administration changes. We've seen that we're capable of substantial turnover in a short period of time. Right now, we're in a very good place, no question about it. But the day could come where that's not the case. And we've got a situation here where we've defined all the terms up there, very carefully defined all the terms except the term continuous. And as our attorneys have trained us, in the absence of a definition in our ordinance for that word continuous, we're left to the Webster Dictionary version of determining what that means. And Webster says, marked by uninterrupted extension in space, time, or sequence. So just take a scenario where we've got different staff in place, and somebody has put down the foundation for the new modular construction we approve for all residential districts. They lay the foundation, they get out the inspector right away, they pass that inspection for the foundation work and whatever plumbing they've got in there and so on. Now they're waiting for that modular home to be delivered. If that modular home goes past a 180-day mark, which in today's market is very realistic that would happen, they could have their permit yanked based on the continuous clause. And I think that's the part that I don't like, is because it leaves it to essentially staff to determine it and the builder at the mercy of that. And you can come up with scenario after scenario like that we deal with every day in building projects. Just look at the effect that we're going to have with all the tariffs. If you're building a red steel building and you get your foundation down and you got your red steel on order, and all of a sudden the tariffs with China kick in and all that stuff starts getting delayed, so much for continuous progress on your project. Now you're still at risk if you go past the 180-day period with no inspection. You'd probably have to plead your case with the city to say, here's why I'm late. But nonetheless, those are all extraordinarily realistic scenarios that the word continuous just sits there and seems to want to infringe upon. And again, I'm not saying with our current staff, I want to be extraordinarily clear on that. I'm saying in the future, with people that are going to carry on after we're done with these roles, you could have that scenario, or you could have a scenario where somebody just had a problem with one developer and decided to make the word continuous work against that developer. So I think we obtain all the objectives that we've talked about. Everything is covered. The requirement that substantial progress is defined as one or more required inspections being passed in a rolling 180-day period in that first 365 days of the base permit. Seems very reasonable to me. You really can't come up with a scenario that justifies the continuous with that in place.
Ralph?
Yeah, and while I appreciate the analytical thinking of Alderman Schultz. I always factor in the human element in this because, as he's presenting continuous, it's, to me, the 180 days is a linear timeline of things need to be done where you're checking something off. But, the continuous gives that flexibility of, as long as there's communication about the project, and city staff and the builder or developer are working in conjunction with each other, that's what gives for that ebb and flow or that flexibility in that particular ordinance. I think you take it out, and now you're really on a stringent timeline. And so, I mean, what a death in the family can affect that. As long as city staff knows, hey, there's a death in the family, this is going to be going through probate, this is going to happen, or I just need to take some time off, and that builder's making people aware of that. That allows for that flexibility, and that person doesn't lose that permit because there's constant communication between our city staff and the builder or the developer. And I think that's what gives it that human touch to it, is being able to have that continuous in there so that you can factor in those human things that happen, not just supply line things or tariff things, however those things factor in. So to me, that's the level of importance. And I think substantial, and that 180 days period just gives it so much of a hard line of a linear, here's how we're measuring it. To be able to pass one or more inspections, if a death in the family happens and I have to take some time off, I might not get those inspections done because there's no progress made. But the progress that I make is my continuous communication with our city staff, ensuring them that, hey, I'm taking a break from this. I'm not abandoning this project. And I think that's the thing that's been missing from this city for a long time, is really good communication. And we're really starting to foster that. And I think when we have opportunities to be able to make those things available for builders and developers and our city staff to have that openness about that, that's what's going to take us from good to great. And when you put this stringent line on it, I think these hard lines, it's just physically it feels like I have to do this, and this, and if I don't, then I'm out. But with that continuous in there, I think it just factors in the human element of a development, of a project, of a house build. I mean, just things happen. Hell, divorce happens in the middle of a house build. I don't know. That happens, doesn't it? Right? So that could factor into some delay, but it's not an abandonment of that project, and it doesn't warrant losing that permit. It's just that communication. And I think if we excise that from this ordinance, I think we lose that ability for that creativity to happen like that. Just one alderman's opinion, though.
Thank you. Glenn?
I appreciate Alderman LeBlanc's comments, but I think unfortunately it's the opposite, exactly the opposite. The ordinance says that to keep your permit, there's two things you must do if you leave the word continuous in. There's two requirements that must be met, and they both must be met. The one requirement is it has to be continuous construction, uninterrupted construction. Okay, that's the first requirement. You also must have an inspection and a rolling 180-day period, pass a required inspection. So this isn't mercy to the builder, it's the opposite. This is requiring two things that the builder must comply with in order to keep their permit. The mercy comes with the general ability to speak with our staff and say, hey, extenuating circumstances have come up, and therefore, we need an extension or we need something special. I think that's just a normal conversation with staff. This is the opposite. This is saying you must do both of these things, otherwise your permit is canceled. That's what it reads. The term "and," continuous "and," makes both clauses have to be true to keep your permit. And I'm proposing with this amendment that we make it only based on substantial progress. So to your point, Alderman LeBlanc, if somebody has an issue where they're sick or they got a problem with the family, nobody can tell them, hey, you're not going to get your permit just got canceled. They can't say that. by eliminating the word continuous. Instead, the only requirement is that they have to pass an inspection, a required inspection, in that period. That's it.
Okay, Alderman Schultz, I think you accurately conveyed what your opinion and your message is. Any questions or input from the audience? Hearing none, is there any additional input or comments from the board? Hearing none, let's vote. This is a second read. Hillary, this will require a roll call vote.
It's a
Right.
vote on the amendment.
The amendment's on the
So we're
floor at
gonna-
this moment.
So we can voice vote. on
Correct.
the amendment. Okay, so what we're voting on is to amend this by removing continuous and. That's the proposal. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
No.
So Hillary, would you do a roll call vote for clarity if?
I would do a roll call vote, yes, please. I
Who?
also don't know what is happening. I'm so sorry. Oh, okay, there we go. Roll call vote, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Lucas. Denham.
No.
Cooper.
No.
Howden.
Yes.
LeBlanc.
No.
Schultz.
Yes.
So the result of the vote is 2 yeses, 4 nos. The motion to amend does not carry.
And so that'll be the only action required on this, is that right, Hillary?
So now you will want to vote on the,
Oh, for
well,
the
just
final
on the
second
vote.
read?
Yeah, yes, correct.
Okay,
And there's a motion second on the floor, so it's just we're ready for a vote whenever. you're
okay.
ready.
Are there any comments on the motion that's on the floor? Hearing none, it's a second and final. Hillary, would you provide a roll call, please?
Lucas. Denham.
Yes.
Cooper.
Yes.
Howden.
Yes.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
The result of the vote is 6-0, motion carries.
Okay, with that, I've been requested for a potty break, so we're going to take a short recess. Is potty break, Solon, is that in the legal? Call this meeting back to order. Hillary, we're on item 10, I believe.
Excuse me.
It's item 9.
What? Oh.
Are you
Stand
ready?
corrected.
All right, Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill number 6529, an ordinance approving the first addendum to the 2025-2027 collective bargaining agreement with Southern Missouri Professional Firefighters Local Number 152, affiliated with the International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO CLC, pertaining to amending of 2025-2027 agreement for minor corrections in a one-year trial period for the 48 69-hour shift schedule and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
You've heard the first reading of Bill 6529. Do a motion approving this?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Staff report from Holly.
As we
And
let you
gang.
know, yeah, it's a team. And we don't do this alone. As you presented tonight in the State of the City, the firefighters are one of many of our important public safety servants. And we, in negotiating the contract in December of 2024, we made provisions for a vote for the change to a one-year trial period in 2026 to the 48 96-hour shift. This first addendum to that CBA is what is required to be able to run this trial period starting in 2026. It technically starts December 27th, 2025. We are bringing this to you today with the caveat and understanding that unfortunately we were unable to accomplish the union vote last night, and so the union still must vote on it. Bearing in mind, the union did vote with a 71% approval of this one-year trial. So we kind of have an indication where they may go, but this represents good faith negotiations and very friendly negotiations amongst the city and the union.
Holly, I want to start off by saying, for the last few years, I have been so impressed on the relationship that you have created and our local has created to work together to solve solutions. I take my hat off. We owe it. We owe it to our fire department to be fair. And when I read the draft on this, I did see that the majority of the local voted in favor, and that may be why this is a one-year trial to see how it goes, right? Chief, everybody, you're all supportive of doing this? So by us voting tonight, appreciating the fact that the local still has to vote, we're going to vote on this, and if they come back with something different, then we'll amend it.
Yes, we set a deadline, a very aggressive deadline, that we open this to February 15th, but have it voted on and resolved by March 31st. We wanted to ensure that this was not something drug out and everything could be in place, because that's a preparation, that's a change in your lifestyle.
That's right.
For this shift change. So that's why we set it up when we did.
But if it's something they want, right? Any questions, comments from the board?
Chief, percentage-wise, what would you say all your firefighters in favor versus not in favor of this change?
71% in
Oh, is that
favor
what you was talking about, the
and
71% was,
29%
oh, okay.
Against. That was 50 votes eligible, I believe 48 said yes. So we're just right in there. So that was brought to us from the union to make this change.
I got some friends that are firefighters down in the Dallas area where I'm from, and I just learned about this, that they're all doing, a lot of them are doing this now. I just learned this actually a couple of months ago, but, so this is becoming more common?
Yes, in fact, most of our neighbors, other shops in the union are on the schedule.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Ralph?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty glad to see this. I know over the years, this has been, kind of a topic of conversation. It's one of those things that, just kind of lends itself to the ever-changing climate of improving the lifestyle of our first responders and our public safety personnel. And, I think, the idea that it's a trial is, for everyone involved, so that, we can get a taste of it so that they can, really get comfortable with it, and so that us as a municipality can get used to that kind of stuff. And, I think it's something that's going to ever enhance their lifestyle because, we talk about how great they are. And, beyond fighting fires, they also have lives. And this enables them to have that quality time with family and friends and do the things that they not just vocationally love to do, but what they avocationally love to do. And, I foresee this being a huge success amongst and I think it's just going to be another thing that boosts morale and really just, makes our public safety top notch. So I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other aldermen? Artie?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say that anything we can do to enhance the lives of our fire department, I'm 100% behind. As you said in your speech, they strap on their boots every day and doesn't make any difference. They don't know what's coming.
Yep, that's right.
They're standing in the line.
That's exactly right. Any other? Yes, Ted?
Just to clarify, the union was scheduled to vote yesterday evening, but we had a working structure fire in the county that we sent resources to, plus off-duty personnel, so they were whipped and worn out yesterday evening. So they will get this scheduled prior to the second read. So we're on board with that.
So what I'm hearing you say is you let a fire.
We accidentally let a fire happen in the county yesterday.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it.
Your Honor, the next item is a resolution authorizing the police department to apply for a Missouri Department of Transportation grant to fund driving while intoxicated traffic enforcement within the city of Branson, Missouri.
Are we being double teamed by our public safety? Yes, Chief. Oh, wait a minute. I have to do something here. Do I have a motion adopting this resolution?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report from Chief.
Mayor and members of the board, thank you. This is an annual request for us, and as the next agenda item is as well. This is for money from the Department of Public Safety for Missouri to help us enforce DWI enforcement, one of the things that you highlighted in your speech. So this gives us overtime to be able to go out and target drunk drivers and make our community safer. This one also includes a new drunk kit for us, basically, for when we do our Citizens Academy. We have those drunk goggles or those drinking goggles, and then we put you out there on a go-kart or something and see how you drive at different levels of simulated intoxication. I'm seeing the smile. I know when we let Kathy do it, she did the 0.25, and she said this takes her back to her Wisconsin days. So, yeah. So with that, we do recommend approval of this resolution.
Other than picking on Kathy, does any board member have any questions, comments? Glenn?
Chief, just one quick question. I didn't see the actual grant terms in the package, so can you comment, does this put any restrictions or requirements on us as a city other than the specifics of how we spend the grant?
Yes, it does. As far as that's why we were specific about the goggles versus the amount of overtime that we will do. So our sergeant that wrote the grant put those both in there. So we're asking for the one kit, and then the remainder of that is for overtime for the officers. And then the only requirements that we need to meet, and it's not necessarily for this grant, it helps us qualify for future grants, is a certain number of enforcement activities and stuff to show that we're actually out there using the money for what it's intended.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Any questions from the audience? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it.
Your Honor, the next item is a resolution authorizing the police department to apply for the Missouri Department of Transportation Highway Safety Program grant to fund hazardous moving violation enforcement within the city of Branson, Missouri.
Do I have a motion adopting this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report from Chief.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This is another grant that goes hand in hand with this at the same time of the year. This is for our hazardous moving. So we're looking for not necessarily intoxicated drivers, but dangerous drivers. So we tend to focus on our areas where we have the highest amount of risk to pedestrians and or speeding accidents or red light intersection where our data shows that the majority of our accidents are occurring. I actually did cover one of my officers on a stop up on Branson Hills Parkway yesterday, doing exactly that. He was out on the hazardous driving, and that's one of our higher speed roads, and so he was doing exactly what this grant pays for. So we are requesting $10,000 from the state to pay our officers overtime to go out and focus on these areas. And so with that, we do recommend approval.
Thank you. How did Kathy do on this one?
I'm happy to say it was a local plate and not a Wisconsin plate, so.
Any members of the board wishing to speak to this? Any members of the audience? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. We're now at the report section of the meeting, and we'll start with Alderman Lucas.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say, well done tonight. It was a great speech, and I think it was well received by the audience. There were no spitballs I saw flying up towards you or anything of that nature, and so I think it was a great speech, and I just wholeheartedly agree with everything you've said about where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going.
Thank
Good
you so
job.
much for that, Artie. Ruth?
Mr. Mayor, wow, it was fantastic. Kathy, Alex, all our directors, everyone that's put so much into this city over, and it's been such a short amount of time, although it's been a while, but such a short amount of time to get so much accomplished. Our public safety we couldn't have any better. I'm very, very proud to sit on this board with each and every one of you, and I'm very proud to be serving the citizens of this, of Branson.
Thank you, Ruth. Clay?
I just want, well, since we're on the police thing, I just wanted to compliment, I had a little instance at my theater on Thursday, at a gentleman just showed up at my rehearsal center stage and got aggressive, and it was just out of nowhere, and I called 911, and they showed up. The guy left, went next door, and I observed for 15 or 20 minutes. Another couple more officers showed up, and the way they handled that, because the guy was out of it, and the way they handled that whole thing was just remarkable. I mean, their patience and their tolerance with this guy and everything was just handled so well. So I just want to say thank you to your officers that were there.
And I'll ditto that. I've seen our officers in action, and like you said, their patience and their professionalism, I'm constantly amazed.
Because I'm sorry, but this guy was not real friendly back to them. You know what I mean? So they held that, yeah. It's not easy to hold your composure when you have a guy wired out of his mind that's hollering obscenities at you, and they did a really good job.
Yep. Marshall?
Mr. Mayor, having been to all 3 of your State of the City addresses in the past few years, I just want to comment on how amazingly fun that event has turned into. You know, when we did the first one, there were people in the audience that were just remarking on how cool it was to be able to come together as a city and hear those things. And just seeing former aldermen here tonight, all 3 of our county commissioners, just a really neat thing. It was very well written and very well delivered, so I just thought it was a really cool event.
Thank you, Marshall. Ralph?
Well, I too attended the mayor's State of the City address. Great job. You know, and what a shining representation of what this mayor and this board have been able to achieve, along with our city staff. And, you know, the coming together as a city, what Marshall just said, you know, and I just kind of want to elaborate on the comprehensive cooperation, and it seems to, it's top down. It's the leadership down of what's happening within our city hall here, and it's starting to infect the rest of the city to the extent that, you know, we have this cooperation with the downtown CID and the collaboration there, and you know, I mentioned that, you know, what a great thing for them to participate in, to be part of that downtown improvement, to do something that highlights their businesses downtown. And it couldn't happen any other way. It's one of those things where, as a city, we could do it, but we'd have to extend ourselves. As a CID, they didn't have the funds to do it. But when you come together as a city, everything is possible, and that's what's happening. And it truly is starting to infect, I use that word, infect our whole city. And that's just an amazing, amazing feat considering where we all came from.
Thank you, Ralph. Glenn?
Yeah, I too want to say just what a great job on the speech. It was fun to just kind of sit there and listen to all the accomplishments. I realize we're kind of living it on a regular basis, but when you hear somebody just go through them and boom, 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 it's like, wow, that is pretty darn impressive, you know? And it's just great to see the excitement of the city. I love the standing ovation for our first responders. Yep. It just rang so true for our city. I'm sure if there had been vets in here and we had done that, that would have been another standing ovation. Yep. So just fantastic. Thanks. It's a great event. I hope we see it. I didn't mean there were no vets, Alderman Lucas. I meant if we had acknowledged the vets to stand up or something. Thank you for that. But really, I think it was a fantastic event, and I thank you for doing that, and I hope to see it year after year, because I think it does the city well, and I think it helps underscore to our residents and our businesses all the things that are going on. Thank you. I do have a couple other real quick things. I've gotten now a number of citizen complaints about what is commonly called jake braking or air braking with semis coming off of 248 onto Branson Landing or Branson Hills. I've had residences complain, and now I've got an attorney's office that is halfway down Branson Hills complaining about the noise that they're interrupting their teleconference calls with clients. Wow. So I get it. You know, when I go out for harvest, I drive a 105,000-pound semi with overload permits. I understand why you want to use jake brakes occasionally. But frankly, we've got an ordinance on the books that says you cannot use jake brakes unless it's equipped with a muffler. Well, here's my request to city administration is if we could possibly step up enforcement of this in that area. I realize the issue of muffler versus no muffler is perhaps challenging, but perhaps if we stopped some of these drivers and at least gave them warnings or whatever's appropriate, the word would get out that they can't be doing this. But I'm getting enough complaints now that it's becoming a serious thing in that neighborhood. So I'd ask that we enforce it. And I'd also ask maybe to the police chief as they get into this, if they feel that's appropriate, that they come back to the Board of Aldermen. I would be completely in favor of an ordinance that most cities have, most larger cities have, that say no jake brakes, period. Muffler or no muffler. Once you're in the city limits, unless it's an absolute emergency, you cannot use it. And, you know, the deal is with these brakes on the semi, the reason they use them is they're trying to save their mechanical brakes on the trucks and not wear down their pads. So they've got basis for it, but in terms of disturbing the peace of our city, I don't think it's acceptable. So Kathy, our Administrator Stepp, I'd ask if you'd please look at that and maybe take some action on that. The other thing kind of similar that I'd like to comment on is, so as you know, I serve on the airport board of directors, the advisory board for the county. Today, it came up that they are dealing with pigeon problems in their hangar. Now you might say, well, the airport's not in the city, so why are we talking about this? They specifically referenced at that meeting that the pigeons are coming from the landing.
So these are city pigeons.
City pigeons. They've actually got a Branson logo on their wings. Anyhow, and in all seriousness about this, though, since I live in that area, if you've been down there, there are people now that are shoveling out 20-pound bags of feed to these pigeons, and we literally have hundreds of pigeons waiting around for this feed, if not thousands of pigeons. From a U.S. federal law perspective, they're considered an invasive species. From a Missouri DNR perspective, they're open season, no restrictions, no license. Okay, so I only say that to the extent that, you know, they're an undesirable thing, and we've got people feeding them and causing problems. And I'm wondering if there would be an appetite for any other aldermen to work with me and staff in drafting an ordinance to try to get after this rodent problem in the form of these birds. Because their droppings are very destructive to property. I've got all of the landing is fed up with the pigeons. I've tried to address this with the mall management at the landing and basically got blown off with the approach. And so I'd ask on the side if any aldermen would care to work with me and staff on authoring something to deal with this. I'd be happily take that up.
Mr. Mayor,
What? Yes.
I was visiting with Angie Teal this evening.
Okay.
Before your speech, and she was showing me, I guess they have a problem with pigeons at the convention center. And they are bringing in a falcon, I believe it is, to deal with them because that is the predator for
You bet it is.
pigeons. And so that's something they might look at. But actually, I like them. They're good eating.
So what if we put on the agenda, we could have a contest with the aldermen to go down there, and if it's open season, he who gets the most wins.
Except we have one little problem, that we have a no pellet gun, no BB gun.
No, I'm talking
ordinance in the city.
shotguns, no.
No bow and arrow, no pistols, no rifles, no shotguns.
Branson.
Now, you might get away with a
Maybe we
slingshot.
can double up on this. My police department is constantly going to the range for target practice. If you would go to the south parking lot of the Branson Landing and do your practicing there.
Another option is, having recently attended the opening of the David play, we could probably get their David actors to come with their.
There you go.
You know this is going to be on Branson Buzz tomorrow, this whole discussion.
That's, I know, yeah.
We can only hope.
You're right. I know that's a big concern. It's worth discussion because that'll affect other areas of our town, right? And it'll negatively affect, could negatively affect our visitors and our locals. So let's chew on that. Anything else? Okay, Kathy.
I've got a skunk living in my
I get it,
theater
Tom.
I'd like to get rid of.
You've got what?
A skunk living at my theater I'd like to, I mean, I'm serious. If y'all got any, go ahead. It's true.
Okay, the meeting is falling apart. We should wrap up. I only have a few brief comments. I attended the grand opening at our new campground. I know several here did. Very impressed with what Cindy did with the fire pits and the picnic tables. From an economic standpoint, our Parks Department now is generating more revenues that they can use to further enhance our city, which is great. I know that, I understand Kendall and them did a lot of work out there, and Michael. I just think it looks great. I attended the grand opening of Whataburger. They have one heck of a following. And like I said out there, I really respect the fact that they truly do give back to the community, right? They started out with a $1,000 donation to the Boys and Girls Club, and they will be contributing throughout the year to our local, which is great. Glenn mentioned the premiere of David. Unbelievable. My wife and I have been fortunate to attend 6 or 8 shows on Broadway. I've attended shows in Vegas, and I'm going to tell you, that performance of David is superior to any show I've seen on Broadway. to have that caliber in our town is amazing. Amazing. During my speech tonight, I can't thank Alex and Maria enough for creating that. I can tell you, when I read it, I felt every one of those sentences in my heart. I'm hoping my passion showed because I truly believed in everything that I said. I am so excited for 25 and 26. And like I said, with all of us working together, it's unlimited what we can do and achieve. So with that, Kathy's kicking me. It's 8 o'clock. Everybody's picking on Kathy. Yes. So I've had 3 motions to adjourn.
Second.
In a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Thank you very much.